There's no doubt that the gay population at GW is big, but no one is quite sure just how big. But now, members of that community are pushing for a resource center where gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgendered students can go for help and support. Their timeline is ambitious, open by next fall. Is that possible? Can a grassroots movement make the resource center a reality? And is it necessary? This group of students thinks it is. On Monday night, they gathered in the Marvin Center to call their parents and ask them to call the university in support of an LGBT resource center. The movement to get a resource center continues much as it started, from the ground up.
It's really a student-driven campaign, and that all the organizing that's been going on is from a group of students, and that we're all working together, and we always need more student support, and that as much as the SA plays a part, the administration plays a part, it's really the students right now who are on the ground and like talking to each other and talking to their parents and finding ways to make this a reality for each other.
Amy Dorfman and Mike Dinopoli were there in the beginning, back in September. 10 students gathered in the basement of New Hall to talk about the possibility of an LGBT resource center.
And so, what did you really find when you had that first meeting? What was the outcome of that meeting?
That everyone wanted a resource center, and that even seniors who were leaving still really had a passion to make sure that it happened for future GW students.
And now, pushing for the resource center is the undergraduate LGBT group Allied in Pride. Neha Shah is president of the group.
So this is entirely membership driven. We're the ones, researching and writing and talking to administrators. We have kind of a separate committee of members who are interested in the issue, and so we meet fairly regularly to kind of plan and strategize, and we've met with all different types of administrators.
The students held a town hall last semester like this one, where over 50 people turned up to discuss the need for a resource center.
And how receptive has the student body at large been of the idea of a resource center?
With the exception of a few kind of individuals, we've had some pretty much fairly kind of positive responses from the community. A lot of people recognize the need for this, and a lot of freshmen even commented that they were surprised that we didn't have a resource center. A lot of people just assume that we do, since a lot of other schools in our market basket have resource centers.
Schools like NYU, American, and next year, Georgetown. The Student Activity Center recently hired a graduate student to research the issue. Aaron Fox is that student.
My job is to do research and development for the Resource Center, so what I'm doing is looking into what the students need here at GW and also visiting other campuses, both locally and some campuses in California when I go home for spring break, to look at their resource centers, to see what other colleges have done and then kind of compare that to see what would fit here at GW.
Around the country, only 3%, or 105 of 3,500 colleges, has a resource center. The Resource Center at American contains a library of over 3,000 books, magazines, and DVDs, offers a peer education program, and has been around for nearly 12 years. But Fox doesn't just want to copy another school.
Well, I think what we're going to focus on in the beginning is surveying the student population and seeing what they would want. Because I think that if we do have a resource center, it should be of, by, and for the community and the campus. So my first job, I think, is going to be to survey students on campus to see what they feel like they want to see on the campus.
Why do LGBTQ students need a resource center?
I think LGBT students, especially in college, face kind of unique needs that the university can't just meet as is. So a lot of kids who are coming out are going to kind of face their own unique struggles. Coming out is a process. And so you can't just kind of come to DC and expect to kind of just come out and be fine with it. And so
Robert McRuer is an associate professor of English, but teaches courses on queer studies.
So what kind of, what is it like for a gay college student or a lesbian college student? I mean, what kind of changes are they going through that somebody may need, help with?
Well, that question can probably be answered in as many different ways as there are students for whom the question might be relevant, and in some ways for all students the question is relevant, just like LGBT, just like feminism is not just about women. I think LGBT issues, LGBT classes ultimately are about everyone and about changing everyone's attitudes and perceptions and understandings.
McRuer said that while it may be easier for gay and lesbian students to come out than before, it may be getting harder for transgendered and bisexual students.
Well, in an era of homonormativity, I think for bisexual and transgender students, things in some ways become even more difficult, because if there's this sort of mainstream movement that is all about assimilation, all about behaving in a particular kind of way, then a student whose identity or desires cross gender boundaries or are bisexual identities or desires, things actually might be more difficult than they would have been in an era that's not a homonormative era.
But if GW were to open a resource center, where would the money come from?
So we're not really concerning ourselves with money issues. That's kind of the university's job. We kind of see our role as selling this to the university and helping them realize what kind of the unique needs are.
A 2,700 square foot resource center that opened at the University of California, San Diego 2 years ago cost that school $800,000.
You know, I think ideally it should come from a number of different sources. If the university decides that a resource center is needed on campus and the students feel like they want it on campus, I think that it should come from, you know, university funding, alumni funding. I think it could come from a variety of different sources to show that various aspects of the university are all together on it.
I mean, I think it's important for people to realize that this isn't just going to kind of take money away from other programs. You know, the university, I think, is committed to maintaining the current levels of programming, and so we're hoping to kind of, you know, increase the university's kind of stature and not necessarily kind of funnel money away and just, you know, funnel money away to the LGBT community. No, this is kind of something that's supposed to build community together.
The movement has also caught the attention of student leaders. SA Senator and presidential candidate Vishal Aswani sponsored a Senate resolution in support of the Resource Center.
Students of all different backgrounds, whether they fall in the LGBTQ community or they fall in the Indian community, whatever it may be, need that sort of resource center, that place to lean on. And myself, of a multicultural background, I have the MSSC. You know, students of various ethnicities, various religions, for example, Jewish students on campus have GW Hillel. And students of the LGBTQ background don't necessarily have that place to lean on, don't have that staff member to help them through that transition, for example, or to have that staff member who can be that liaison to university counseling, to help if there are any family disputes back at home, things like that. And even on the financial end, and more importantly in the housing and regarding transgender housing, things of that nature, they don't have that background. So that's why I realize that the university needs that. And all universities need that.
Sasha Madway, a senior, was at the Allied and Pride meeting we went to on Monday night. Madway is a transgendered female.
How would you rate your experience with housing? My experience with housing was difficult. My first contact there was not ultimately successful. I ended up going to disability support services. Disability support services.
But is this ever considered a disability anyway?
It is not classified under the Americans with Disabilities Act. What ended up happening was, it was, I believe, processed, I'm not exactly sure, as a medical condition to get me appropriate housing. But that was an extra step, and it wasn't something I knew, because there's no one on this campus who could say to me, this is what you need to do. It was something I sort of figured out on my own.
So far, students have met with Tim Miller, director of the Student Activity Center, Helen Canaday-Salney, Assistant Vice President of Student Support Services, and will meet with President Knapp on Friday.
Do you think that this is going to be a reality? Does it seem like Tim Miller and the SAC folks, are they committed to this? Does it seem like?
From everything that I've seen in talking with Tim and in talking with, you know, students on campus, I think that there's, you know, a lot of enthusiasm for the project, and I think that from the research that we find and the surveying that we do, everything's really going to be based off of that. But I think that it looks like the process has really started in a positive way.
The university has issued no official statement in support at this point. There are individual staff members who have been very helpful in pushing this forward, and we thank them so much. But officially, we can't speak as far as if they're definitely in support or not.
What's the next step if it comes back and the university says, you know, in May, we've researched it, we don't want to do it? What's the next step?
I mean, we're not really kind of focusing on that. We're fairly positive given kind of the responses we've met with the university administration. So I think we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. if we come to it. We don't anticipate coming to kind of that point.